Hi, I'm Natalie Rogers with Tat Your Own Adventure, and in this video we're going to look at how to add in thread when you run out. So if you can see on this shuttle, I have only that length and I need to do a ring, which means once I get that set up in my hand, I don't have enough thread to work with here. So at this point, I am going to detach it from my shuttle, leaving myself a tail to work with here. And I'm going to grab my replacement thread, which in this case, I'm going to use a different color so you can clearly see what I'm doing. If you're working a pattern that you want the red to continue, obviously you'd want to use red. If you're working with two shuttles or a ball and a shuttle of the same color, then you would want to continue with that same color. But this also works if you want to switch colors. So if you were like, okay, I've done this, now I want to switch colors, this would be the same process. So anytime you need to add in thread, this is your process. I love adding in thread on rings because I find that it's a lot more secure than to add it to a chain. I will also show a couple methods to add it to a chain, but my preferred method is to just pay attention each time I start a new ring to the length of my threads coming up. Do I have enough to complete to the next ring? If I don't, then this is where I'm going to look at adding in thread. So at this point, I'm ready to do another ring. Looks like I have a ring of 9. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, no, ring of 8. Okay, so need to do another ring of 8. I'm gonna grab my shuttle. That is my replacement shuttle. So for you, it would probably be the same color that you're replacing. For me, I'm going to use purple here so that you can see what the new thread is doing versus what the older threads are doing. I'm going to leave a tail length that I'm going to cover up. So if you're new to covering tails, you might want to leave a longer tail length because that's going to be easier to work with. If you've covered tails a lot, you can do a shorter length. So for this demo, I'll do like a 3 to 4 inch tail just so it makes it easier to cover on the other part. When I'm tatting myself, I'm probably only going to do like a 1 inch tail here because I'm starting with a ring. So this tail is going to be very secure into the next element, so I don't have to have it quite as long when I'm covering. Okay. So then I make the loom with the new thread for my ring, and I start the first half of the stitch. But I don't pull it down tight yet. I get it to flip, and then I need to pass my thread through that flipped loop so that it lies the same direction right along next to my core thread here. Okay, so that's the idea, you're passing it along with the core thread. Snug that down. Detangle it from my core thread here. Okay, that's the first half. Second half of the stitch, again, get it to flip, then get into that flip to pull up your thing. Pull up the red, pull up the old thread. Okay, that's one way to do it. If your shuttle has a point, you can use that to pull the thread up through. If you prefer, if your shuttle has a crochet hook or you have a crochet hook handy, you can grab your crochet hook and use that to pull the thread up through. Oops, I gotta be on the correct side. There we go. Again, getting the stitch to flip and then pull it through. So you can use your fingers, you can use your shuttle tip, you can use a crochet hook. You can also send the thread along with what you're doing. So this thread's long enough that I can bring it in here and wrap it once or twice around my shuttle. probably just once. This is a big shuttle, so I need space to pass it through. So it's wrapped around my shuttle. Now it's side by side with the core thread, so it is part of the core thread now. So I can do it that way to pass it through. If it's not long enough to wind, but it is long enough to get to your shuttle, you can use blue tack, ticky tack, poster tack. You work it in your fingers to warm it up. Then you can take your tail end, wrap it around your tail end. It comes off pretty cleanly, so it's fine here. And then just stick it to your shuttle. It helps if your shuttle has a little bit of a raised or lowered part, grooves basically that it can hook into. And then you can pass it along. Again, it's basically just right alongside your core thread. Okay. And it comes right off, comes out of the thread. Or you can finger tat a stitch. A complete double stitch onto your shuttle thread with the tail. Tat that stitch towards the end of the tail, because then what you can do is slide that stitch along the tail until it's tensioned nicely, and then anytime you have to adjust, you can adjust it because it just slides. Then you can pass that through. The only thing you have to watch for is making sure that the double stitch you've got doesn't get caught up when you're doing the flip. So as long as it's not getting caught, you're good to go. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is the number of stitches I want for this. So if you did this method, then you're just going to undo that double stitch at the end once you've got it hidden in your work. Hidden in all those stitches so I can trim it. So that's clipped off. I can close my ring. And then I can turn it back over and resume tatting my next chain. So I'm going to add a double stitch here, just to hold the thread with what will be the core thread. Okay, stretch that out along. Tat my next stitches, and I'm tatting over the tail and the core. That way I'm hiding the tail. And I'm doing 8 stitches. When you're hiding thread, if you can hide it in the whole element, your whole element's thickness will stay the same. If I only hid this in the first 4 or 6 stitches, there'll be probably a noticeable difference between that and the last stitches to get to my 8 count. So since this is a short chain, I'm going to hide it in the whole chain, just because it gives it a nice even tension. So the chain is done. I can undo my double stitch. Make sure this is separated from the ones that I want so that I'm cutting the correct thread. If you'd rather just leave it dangling and cut it off later, once you're sure you're not going to cut the wrong thread, that's fine too. I like to trim as I go. And then my next element is another 8 ring. And that ring is done. And then let's say for demonstration purposes that I wasn't paying attention and my yellow thread, oh no, is too short to do my next chain. So I need to add in thread on a chain because I wasn't paying attention to my thread length. So again, I prefer, whenever possible, to add thread in on rings. But if I'm not paying attention, I'm going to add in blue so you can see a totally different color. If I'm not paying attention, I can add it to a chain. It's just not as secure as I would like it to be until I get to the next ring. So there are a couple different ways you can do this. I've seen people put it through the center of their last ring to fold it over, wrap it around at the base of the last ring, which I think is what I'm going to do this time to show you. So I wrap around the base of my last ring. There'll be a little color blip there. So little color blip, but it's going to really secure this in. So if this is the same color, if I was continuing with yellow, this is not going to be a big deal. And that would be fine. If it's a new color, this might not be the way you want to do it. But if I do this, I'm securing it so that it's wrapped around itself, which means if I pull on this, I'm less likely to pull it all the way out as I work that chain. So I'm going to set up my loom on my hand for my chain. So I've got it wrapped around at the base of the previous chain. It's a pretty short tail. So again, get it to flip, come down and grab. Now I'm grabbing 2 tails because I'm grabbing the blue tail that I just added and I'm grabbing the old yellow tail. And they are all coming alongside the purple to be the core of this thread. So I'm going to tension just a smidge tighter since I am tensioning around 3 threads instead of 2 like I normally would when adding in a bit. So now that I've got that first stitch in, this is not going to pull out because it's wrapped around the core there. If I tug on it, I'm not going to lose that thread. And this is adding in the chain color. If I needed to add in the ring color, it would be part of my core, and I wouldn't want to be tugging on it yet because it would just be a core thread folded over. And at this point, under 1 or 2 stitches, that can still be pulled out. So tucking tails can be a little bit tedious, but to me it beats having to sew them in later. So it's worth the extra amount of time that it takes. So get it to flip. Get in there and grab all of those tails. And slide it down. And repeat. I've got 5 stitches so far, so I need 3 more. This is also something you'll get faster at with practice. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. One more. There's 8. Tension them how I want them. You can see that it is kind of, those are slightly thicker stitches than the yellow ones because I hid 2 threads inside that. Or sorry, 2 extra threads, so 3 threads total, along with my core. Along the core. So I would actually trim them one by one. So I'm going to trim the yellow one. And trim the blue one. Again, making sure I don't snip either my purple or my blue one that I'm continuing on with. At this point, all those threads were secure, so I snipped them off. They're done. I don't need to worry about them. And I'll do my last ring here. And that was how you add in thread on either a ring or a chain. Again, my preferred is on a ring, but the color blip's not too bad on the chain. So that is very doable to have it more secure than if we had just left a tail. If you can plan ahead and you like using the magic thread trick, you could have put a magic thread along here that stuck out this way to pull that tail back through, and that would have helped you secure it through more of the work and made that tail more secure from pulling out. There we go. So I'm going to tighten this down. And that was adding in thread to both rings and chains. If you have questions, please leave it in the comments. Thanks.